Thank you, Igor. Good morning, everyone. So thank you very much for taking the time this morning to log into the session. I think it'll be informative. We will obviously, try to make it as interesting as we possibly can for everybody. I think you probably already got instructions. If you have questions as we're going, you could just use the QA or the chat function, and we'll try to do them as we go. If not, maybe we'll circle back at the end and try to look at some of the questions. As Igor said, I'm SVP and Chief Marketing Officer at DataSynapse. If you want to send me an offline communication kind of outside this channel, you can find me in any one of the popular social networking sites, and you can send me any questions that you might want, and or if you want to discuss something further that you might hear today. Been doing this for a while, longer than I'd like to admit sometimes, and but kind of been working in the infrastructure software market for the past 15 years or so, and we'll try to share some of that experience today. So today's topic is called Cloud Computing for the Corporate Data Center. I work here at DataSynapse, and we've been working on virtualization and grid computing and now cloud with enterprise customers for the better part of a decade now. And really, this presentation isn't really anything other than trying to kind of aggregate and rationalize the past 10 years' experience in the infrastructure software market, and working with some of the largest companies in the world to help them to modernize their software infrastructure, and trying to share what we learned. So this is kind of less about personal opinion and more about kind of aggregating a bunch of experiences and trying to share them for the benefit of all. I think hopefully you'll come away with some understanding of what's required to take enterprise IT organizations and have them move towards cloud computing. That's really kind of the goal, is to share those experiences, and hopefully everybody learns a little bit about that. I think that we're going to spend the majority of the time here talking about the enterprise. But I think that the proper starting point for this discussion is the consumer space. I think over the last 5 years or so, what we've seen is, the large consumer online service providers, you see some of the logos listed there on the slide, really entered into an arms race, right? They invested, hundreds of millions of dollars in data center capacity and modern data center equipment in an arms race, really, to be the leading provider of online services to the consumer markets globally. And I think what happened is I think they kind of stretched the boundaries a little bit about what's possible, right? They really started to think about, how do I offer unlimited scalability and unlimited capacity to as many people as I possibly can, and offer those services over the internet. And what we've learned is a great deal about kind of how software applications need to be delivered, and how everyone can leverage the internet as a platform to help deliver online applications. So even though that's the starting point, I think the second kind of stake in the ground as a kind of a precursor to the core of what I'm going to talk about was what Amazon did. Right? I think they've staked a claim early on in this over the last few years, and with EC2, that you could have infrastructure as a service provided over the internet. People would build applications, people would host applications, people would host businesses, and pay for computing resources based on usage, using pay-as-you-go models, and people would only pay for the services and the capacity that they consumed. And they made it really easy, and they adopted self-service principles to help folks manage these environments. And I always like to look back at this Business Week cover from a few years ago when they called Amazon EC2 a risky bet. And I think that anybody here who's interested in cloud computing, and anybody who is really part of this movement, will clearly see that the guys from Business Week may have called it risky, but I think that the guys from Amazon kind of knew what they were doing, and they really have shown us a great way here. But so let's transition now and talk a little bit about kind of the core topic that about cloud computing for the corporate data center. Because if Amazon is the harbinger of the external cloud computing platform vendors, and people can consume data center services and compute and storage and even application building blocks on a pay-for-use model, I think it's fair to say for the IT operations in corporate computing environments globally is at the end of the corporate data center, right? If what Amazon is doing is so fundamental, why doesn't every company out there in the Global 2000 just sell their data centers, tear them down, and move everything into the Amazon cloud? Well, I think I'm being a little self-deprecating here, but I think there's a number of issues around security and integration and the types of applications that people use in the enterprise and the performance envelopes that are required and the control and the security models. All of these things are obviously not going to allow Fortune 1000, Global 2000 type organizations from just shutting down their data centers and moving all their applications and computing over to the Amazon cloud. But, and I think this is the core of what we're going to talk about for the next half hour, 45 minutes or so, is that they really, really wanted to help folks. I think that these cloud computing providers like Amazon and some of the other consumer services, we can learn from them in enterprise IT, and I think we can embrace some of these ideas and build hybrid models that encapsulate both cloud computing, over the internet in the Amazon model, and traditional enterprise IT. And that intersection point is really what I'm going to try to discuss in some detail in this presentation. So let's jump in. So the first thing is, what are the types of things that I think that enterprise IT can learn